Have you ever heard the phrase, money makes money? It's one of those sayings that gets tossed around a lot in conversations, but the actual quote from none other than Benjamin Franklin goes, money makes money, and the money that money makes money. It's the kind of phrase that sounds almost too simple to be true, yet beneath its simplicity lies a powerful truth, the magic of compounding. Compounding can be an incredible force for good. It can build wealth beyond what most people think is possible. But for others, it can be a source of immense stress and frustration, especially if you're on the wrong side of it with debt piling up around you. And listen, I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm certainly not your financial advisor. I'm sharing everything that I learned to enable me to retire 5 years ago at the age of 51, and for my wife Sarah, who was 49, and with a hope that you can learn some valuable lessons so you too can achieve financial independence for yourself. If you want to hear it from someone who's actually done it, I recommend you subscribe to the channel, ring that bell and do all that kind of good stuff. But let's get into it. What exactly is compounding? Well, it's the process by which money grows on itself. Think of it like a snowball rolling downhill, gaining size and speed as it goes. But as with most things in life, there is a catch. The catch is time. Nothing worthwhile comes without effort. And the same goes for building wealth. You need time to let the magic of compounding work. Think about it. If you want to become a master violinist, you can't just pick up a violin on day one and expect to play like a virtuoso overnight. No, you're going to sound pretty terrible for a long time. You've got to put in the hours, you've got to put in the sweat and the patience. And the same applies if you're trying to lose weight. Trust me, I'm working on this myself right now. You can't just eat one salad and expect to drop pounds. No, you have to stay the course, even when it feels like you're not making any progress. And that's why so many people give up on big goals, whether it's weight loss or learning the violin or building wealth. It's hard. It takes time. And staying the course, well, that's even harder. So let's talk about wealth building. Let's say you're able to find an investment that on average will pay you 8% a year. For example, the US stock market over the last 30 years has produced a return of 9.65%. Now, let's say you invest £1,000 with an 8% return. At the end of the year, that £1,000 or dollars has grown to 1,080. Not bad, right? But here's where it gets interesting. The title of this video is why 100K is just the beginning, the real wealth curve. Getting to 100K is tough, really tough in fact. Most people will never reach that milestone, but the reason isn't necessarily that they can't, it's they're not willing to pay the price. And what's the price? Time, perseverance, patience, all that stuff. We live in a world where instant gratification reigns supreme. People would rather spend money today on luxuries than invest in their future. And hey, that's a choice everyone can make. No judgment here. But if you're serious about building wealth, that choice comes with consequences. It's kind of like learning a new language. I'm currently in Spain and I've got a 100-day streak on Duolingo learning Spanish. No, this isn't an advert for Duolingo, far from it. But you might think, wow, Neil, you must be fluent by now. But honestly, no hablo español. Why? Because while I've been putting in some effort, I haven't truly immersed myself. I still prefer to watch Netflix in English, not Spanish. And that's a choice that I've made. I'm not willing yet to pay the price to become fluent in Spanish. The same logic applies to wealth building. You can't just invest a little bit and expect to become wealthy overnight. It takes time, patience, and commitment. But why am I focusing on 100K? Why not 50K or 250K? Well, for me, 100K was a game changer. Getting there wasn't easy. It took hard work, sacrifice, and the discipline to save and invest consistently. There were times when I felt like I'd never make it. Coming back to what I mentioned earlier, When you save £1,000 or dollars and get an 8% return, that's just 80 quid. The price of a nice dinner out doesn't feel like that much progress, does it? And putting all that effort into saving that for 1 year, for one lousy meal. But when you finally hit that 100,000 milestone, it's like Rocky training in the meat locker, pounding away at those slabs of meat. I'm sure there was other stuff he preferred to be doing. It's grueling, but he had his eye on the prize. And that's what you need to do. Let's talk about what happens when you hit 100k. Well, first there's a psychological shift, a positive feedback loop. Having a substantial amount in your account boosts your confidence. You stop feeling like you're playing catch up and you start feeling like you're growing wealth. This shift changes your behavior. You become more disciplined with your spending, and you might even find it easier to stick to a budget. Luxuries that once seemed essential suddenly just feel a lot less important. You've got your eye on the prize. Quick aside here, actually. Sarah and I went out about 3 or 4 days ago to a big local shopping outlet. These places that sells things half price, but probably double what they should be worth. I took Sarah there because we're doing some travel coming up very soon, and there's a couple of things that she would like to take with her. I took her in there. When I get in these places, I tend to skirt around there in about 10 minutes, buying nothing. Sarah likes to spend a couple of hours. So she spent a couple of hours. I dropped her a message, say, I'm sat in the car waiting for you. And then she said, right, I'll come back to you. After 2 hours, she walked back to me carrying nothing. I said, what do you do? There's stuff you wanted to get. She said, yeah, I looked at it and just thought, I don't need it. And she walked back to the car. Now, us from many years ago, both of us would have been so different to that. And the pressure of modern life, when you've got that 100k behind you, it eases. When you know you've got 100k saved, you're less likely to feel the need to spend impulsively or live paycheck to paycheck even. There's a sense of financial security, and that can change your whole outlook on life. What's more, 100k gives you momentum. Seeing that big round number in your account is satisfying. It motivates you to keep going. It's like reaching a checkpoint in a marathon. You've not done it yet, but you come far enough to know the finish line is within reach. Now, I'm not speaking from experience here. I don't think if I added all the running together that I've done in my entire life, I don't think that by the age of 56, I've yet run 26 miles altogether. But this is where the real magic starts, because 100k isn't just the beginning. That's where you begin to see the power of compounding in force. Let's break it down. Remember earlier when I talked about the 1,000 growing by 8% coming to 1,080? Well, now imagine that same 8% having an investment return on 100k. Well, that's £8,000 or dollars. You're making 8,000 a year for doing nothing. Let me repeat that. You're making more than the average person saves in a year. Data shows the average Brit saves £5,400 a year, and you're saving 8,000 passively. But then the fun begins, because the following year you start with 108,000, which is an 8% growth. In the following year it comes to 116,640. Miraculously, another 640 just appears like magic. When you don't think this stuff through, you might say to yourself, 100k earning 8% a year will earn me 8,000 a year. But that's just the first year. If that were the case, after the third year, it would only be 124,000, that being 8,016.24 in 3 years. But no, in year 3, it's 125,971, nearly 2,000 more that's appeared out of nowhere, and that is the power of compounding. Now let's get into something really cool. This is something called the Rule of 72. It's a simple formula that helps you estimate how long it will take for an investment to double based on the rate of return. You simply divide 72 by your rate of return and voila, you have a number of years it will take for your money to double. It's just simple maths. So an 8% return, that is 72 divided by 8 equals 9 years. So if you invest 100k and are able to achieve 8% in just 9 years without adding another penny, your 100k has grown to 200k. That's without lifting a finger. Now, what if we look at the average return of the S&P 500, which is the main stock market in the US, over the last 30 years? Well, that's around 9.65%. Using the rule of 72, that means your money would double in just 7.5 years if you had it all in the S&P 500. Imagine that 100k turning into 200k in under 8 years. And that 200k into 400k by year 15. Again, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you to invest in the S&P 500. I'm going to tell you in a couple of videos, I think it's in 3 videos time, I'm going to tell you exactly how I invest my money and how I invest Sarah's money for our future. And it's not all in the S&P 500, I can assure you of that. So this is not financial advice. But here's the flip side. While compounding can work wonders for building wealth, it can also be a nightmare if you're carrying debt. If you have a credit card debt at 8%, which I think for credit cards is pretty low to be honest, you're on the wrong side of the equation. Instead of your money growing, your debt is growing, compounding against you. That's why paying off high interest debt is so crucial. It's the reverse of building wealth. You're spending any potential of wealth. This video is part of a series where I share how I became financially independent at 51. If you want to do the same, hit subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss any future episodes. You can check out the playlist right here. Look, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed making it and I hope it's helped some light bulbs go on for you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.